Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's talk about Trump's plan to blockade the Iranian blockade of the Strait of Hormuz as a resumption of hostilities between the US and Iran. Essentially, Trump has announced interdiction of any ships that have paid the toll to Iran, as well as shut down the Iranian ports. I'm not exactly a fan of this ongoing conflict between Iran and the US. However, if it ends quickly, it ends quickly. As things stand, this war is still fairly young, so how things go is still very much remaining to be seen. That said, the decision specifically to blockade the blockade is something I find genuinely interesting. As far as precedent is concerned, this is relatively new territory, I believe, or at least something that is fairly rare in the annals of military history. Yes, mutual blockades have existed prior. Look at the Battle of Atlantic and both of the World Wars, for example. The problem is, that was over a wide open area in that historical context, not a singular strait. You could point to examples of blockades occurring in specific straits, such as the Adriatic Sea campaign in World War I, in which the Entente forces managed to blockade the Austro-Hungarians. On the other hand, the Austro-Hungarians in that situation weren't exactly trying to interdict merchant ships sailing through the Adriatic, unlike what the Iranians are doing to the Strait of Hormuz. And that's before even considering the fact that, unlike Iran, Austria-Hungary at the time of its situation actually had a navy. And the big problem Iran faces, strategically, is that if they want to stop Trump's blockade of their blockade, they kind of need a navy for that in the long run. This move by Trump effectively forces Iran, if they want to do anything about the blockade, to either open up negotiations or go on the offensive in the Strait of Hormuz against the US Navy, something that Iran simply lacks the capacity to do. Oh sure, Iran does have anti-ship missiles, but they A, have to fire enough of these missiles to overwhelm the US Navy's defense systems, and B, have a finite number of these missiles and will likely exhaust the supply before too long. This is all, like I said, relatively new territory. However, judging from the state of affairs, it would appear that the US Navy has a decisive advantage in this regard. If Trump is able to enforce this blockade of the blockade, which it looks like he will be able to do, then that, at the end of the day, like I said, forces Iran to either enter negotiations, try to stop the blockade, which they lack the capability of doing, or worst of all for them, watch helplessly as the US Navy starts collecting tolls from the merchant ships traveling through the strait, causing the US to actually enrich itself as a direct result of the war, which is the exact opposite outcome of what Iran's blockade of Hormuz was intending to accomplish. And it is also kind of a massive political humiliation of Iran, the fact that the US would end up in that case being the one charging the tolls in Iran's own backwaters. So like I said, by all accounts, it'll be very interesting to see how this whole situation goes in the end, even if you're not a fan of the war itself.